Okay, good morning everyone. I'm Johnnie Fox. I'm here, if you're here for the Getting Agile with Drupal presentation, this is it. Just before I kind of get started this morning, pretty flattered to be here in Austin. My personal journey with Drupal really started with a startup here in Austin. So Intermedia, Favish are both supporters of the camp this year, worked with both of those on that project, and have a couple of my mentors, Susan Rust and Michael Cummings, who I've worked with extensively, and have definitely shaped my belief and experience with working with Agile projects. I work with Promet Solutions out of Chicago. We were founded in 2003, switched focus to open source software in 2008. I joined the team in 2011. And we have team members, and when I say team members, I really mean the entire team, meaning not just developers, clients, partners, contractors. We are spread out all over the world. Europe, our main offices are in Chicago. We have an office in the Philippines. We work with people all over the world, which, if you know very much about Agile, is a challenge. So I think it's particularly relevant to know that. So for me to know just kind of about you folks, how many folks are in project manager roles? All right, so maybe a third. So developers? Okay. Business owners? Okay, so some overlap there. This is going to be a whole lot talking about we're going to talk about some of the methodologies and the challenges of Drupal, but really to understand Agile, I'm going to dig in a little bit to the belief behind Agile and some of the frameworks of Agile. And to kind of let you know who I am, I'm a project strategist. I think that is the very most highest value add of a project. I'm a certified Scrum Master by Scrum Alliance. I work in projects that are Drupal, custom development, iOS, C#, PHP. If you pinch me real hard, I might admit to knowing COBOL or Fortran 77. So I've worked on a number of large projects. So for my prior experience prior to 2004 was I worked in construction and managed a business, had 30 employees, like 60,000 hours a year, worked on large construction projects. In my mind, 10,000 hour projects are pretty small. In the Drupal world, that's pretty large. I got project strategist twice, so that's an edit. And I'm a recovering developer, so I have limited attention span, and sometimes I'm socially challenged. So I hear a lot about Agile. I read a lot about Agile. I talk a lot of people about it, and mostly I think a lot of it are lies about Agile. So if you think it's a silver bullet that's going to fix all of your problems, no. Agile can help you address some of the development problems, but you're still, in running your business, going to have some hard choices. Agile is not the right approach for all projects. In the Drupal landscape, we have, there's a number of distributions. We have a number of folks doing software as a service. We have small projects that are, I would say, extremely small projects, say 50 hours and less. Those just won't support the overhead of an Agile framework. One Agile framework will work for everything. So I'm certified Scrum Master. I use Scrum, but really I use a hybrid of Scrum. I've ran a couple large projects in pure Scrum. My sister Nancy is here with us today. She's a project manager for Rackspace and manages what I like to call real software projects. These are $10 million, $5 to $10 million projects, 50 developers. Their burn rate per week is like 1,000 hours a week? more than that. One team will burn more than some of my entire Drupal projects. So I'm going to pull her in for some questions here. Agile will not stop you from making bad decisions, especially if you're really, really committed. You will be able to show up some of those problems earlier. Converting to Agile, just like software frameworks and learning them, you probably will not see an immediate payoff if you start today. It's a learning journey of how we're going to work together, how you're going to work with your team. It's a lot about team building. It's a lot about soft management. All of your clients will love Agile. No. A lot of clients want that fixed cost project. You do have to do some client training. We have had to modify the way we sell projects to go with Agile. It takes some client training. Poorly engaged clients don't really like it, but it moves that discussion up front. And really your love life won't improve if you adopt Agile. I just wanted to throw that in because if I talk to people sometimes it's, it cures your arthritis, it does pretty much everything, and it's not that. So for a backgrounder, where to start is kind of what the business case for projects are. So in a Drupal project where you are just selling a project, we are going to build a website, we are going to deliver it, much like building a house. This is a kind of a linear business process, and I think that's what drives our customers to come to us and say, I want a website, how hard could it be? Here's my spec. These are all the things we could ever know about working the project. If we want to compare that to, kind of the spectrum of project models, we have Waterfall, and Waterfall is really ancient. I'm going to go into that before, and I think people really like it because not because it works. It works for some things, but because it's easy to understand. Most Drupal teams that I see are using a hybrid waterfall. You can call it fragile. It's really hard because on the front end, somebody's like, I have expectations, and then you get to the end and it's like, were my expectations met? And I didn't change them along the way. So you really got to carry the customer, the product owner with you as you're having that discussion. All Agile methodologies kind of use this iteration, and an ideal deployment, or application of Agile, you start with kind of like, I'd like to build something, and you decide like, hey, let's go get started on that. So it's kind of an overview. So Waterfall, where did Waterfall come from? First paper on Waterfall was Dr. William Royce. This is 1970, and he draws this out. He was working with NASA? Lockheed Martin, who was working for NASA. And talking about developing software, and software is a really hard, can be a very difficult landscape because we are selling something intangible. If I'm selling you a lamp, if I'm selling you a MacBook, if I'm selling you a piece of hardware, it's very fixed. We can really decide on that. Royce, in this paper in 1970, says this is a non-working model for software. I worked on many teams. The team I was working here in Austin, we had, I can talk about them because they're not here. They're not one of the companies that's here. They came in, they said, we are a very agile company. Let's get started on the requirements and let's get a Gantt chart. not really agile. They use the word agile. Royce, and I think he's spot on right here, says you can expect about 100% overrun in this model. Because really you get down that stair-step model, and then you discover like, oh, anyone have the problem with field collections in the last few months where the patch broke things? Yeah, that's not in your waterfall model. You know, when Lewis and Clark set out to find the Northwest Passage, it wasn't really possible for them to say, well, Mr. President, we're pretty sure on the 16th day of the journey we're going to have a skirmish with the native residents, and we're going to get up on top of that hill and we're going to shoot them all. No, the plan was we're going to go west and we're going to carry trinkets and money and things to trade, and if that doesn't work, we're going to carry guns to defend ourselves. And Agile is much more that approach than you can write out something that you do not know and figure out how to do it. So what is Agile? It's a software development approach. You can use it for some other projects, but it's a very specific set of terms and functions, mostly centered around self-organizing cross-functional teams. So you have adaptive planning. There's a number of these frameworks. And what they do is if you compare this to Agile versus Waterfall, you know, what's fixed in Waterfall? We spend a lot of time, we get all our requirements, you know, we've got designs. We don't just do wireframes, you know, we do wireframes, mock-ups, we number what each button does, we specify it in explicit, grueling detail. We spend lots of time on that, and then that drives our estimated things, which are resources and time. Agile says, I have a software project. I want to develop something. I would like to get it done, and you know, these are the resources I have. And I think this much better fits clients, even if they don't realize it, because most of them do not have an endless budget or an endless amount of time. When I was listening to Sean's presentation yesterday, South by Southwest, you know, what I heard was, we have a limited amount of time to get this done. We have a limited number of people to get that done. You know, what can we get done in that time? What leverages us to get the maximum amount of functionality to deliver what we need? You know, it's not sitting down deciding all the things we need. So Agile puts the conversation about what are the most important items. There are a ton of Agile frameworks. If you're an HR guy and you would like to put some things behind your name, you know, there's a number of organizations you can go to. There's a number of frameworks. I don't think these are necessarily important. An organization does all need to kind of pick several of these to be good at. The one we wound up picking is we picked the Scrum framework, Scrum framework. Sometimes it is. The two that I like the most are Scrum and Kanban. Kanban works well with Drupal, works particularly well with support. There's some argument about if this really is an Agile framework because it's all tactical. It's what did I wake up this morning and what's on my plate. So in that vein, you can go to a number of organizations. You can get some letters behind your name, and HR people will like you a lot. You'll get responses back. You know, when I got my certification, the LinkedIn folks, you know, the interview requests come in because people are looking for it. But just possession of this certification doesn't make you Agile. The team that I told you I started with that here had the Gantt chart. They were all certified by one of these organizations, and they marched us down a road of fixed requirements. You know, Yeah, poor fixed requirements, loose ideas that did not hang together, things that were not possible in the things that were only possible in the software framework with extreme wrangling of Drupal and what did not fit into the process. So what are we trying to get at with Agile? In general, what we're trying to get at, and I loved Sean's term yesterday during the presentation, and if I were when next time I present this, I'll present it as getting nimble with Drupal. Because Drupal, in my opinion, is not just the process we use for managing the project. I mean, we've already chosen Drupal. I'm probably have more roots in a .NET development background. And the reason I chose Drupal for projects is because instead of me and my team spending 700 hours developing user logins and permissions, I can install a module and do it. True story, banking project, $70,000, logins and permissions. So, you know, our companies are trying to be nimble, to respond to change, to act. I love the second point here, you know, kind of the balance being thing of, you know, we're adapting to change. We're not just working from a fixed plan. All of the Agile, 2002, there were a group of developers that got together to talk about what were fast Agile processes, and they came up with the Agile Manifesto. How many people have read this, seen this, heard about it? All right, about half the room. In Promet, you know, we've always tried to be Agile. Over the last couple of years since I've been there, we've really started going here, and I think it's important that anyone that wants to approach Agile read this manifesto. You know, it has some very basic statements. It is not a straitjacket for how to work because projects are different, organizations are different. So, you know, it values people working together. You know, it values working software. You know, it's working with the customer and it's responding to change. What I didn't know when I first learned this was there's Agile Principles, and the highlighting is all mine. So when we're evaluating what to do, Drupal does this. Brant, your presentation yesterday, you know, you want to demo software quickly. You know, we want to show, like, this is what Drupal can do. I went to Jody Hamilton's presentation or training on solar. Was very happy to see Jody and Zivtech presented it by setting up solar in a Vagrant box. So something that I've worked on teams that took like 3 days to set up solar, configure it, install it. I was in a room with 13 people, all 13 of us, well, 11 of us, were able to get this set up, run solar, have results coming back in Drupal in a 2-hour class. What's the most valuable, like 3 days of setting it up or seeing the software running? You know, same thing with Brant's presentation yesterday. Seeing Drupal responsive, seeing that demo site, that's about being agile. You know, that's like, let's get it now. We've already picked Drupal to work with. Changing requirements. So .NET projects, the project I was on here took about 1.5 years. It's very long. There are some Drupal organizations that have software as a service. All players, Pantheon, you know, Acquia hosting. I know those are long-term, long-running projects. You know, modules change, infrastructure changes, Linux changes, there's patches. What the customer wants changes. So you got to acknowledge that. And on the project, I have a lot of experience because I've been on failed projects. So this is, you know, if we can keep anyone from that ground. So one of the things on failed projects, had a large national church organization I worked for kind of at the end of D6. 18-month project, and about 12 months into it, mobile use is going up, tablets going up. Yeah, there's no plan for doing mobile. It's not in the spec. It's definitely something someone needs. You know, you've got to be able to adapt to it. And so to Brant's point, working software, how does it work? So in an Agile team, one of the concepts we have is you're able to deliver something that you can see and work. I won't just grind through all of these. You guys can read them. But I think this is really essential for anyone in software to internalize, figure out what this means, and how to apply it to the work you're doing. I'm going to take a little diversion about Drupal because I promised to talk about Drupal and Agile. And I'm going to change the title a little bit to Being Nimble. So being nimble is about not just the process, which is Agile, but it's about strategic agility. So, you know, have like a Tesla here. It's a very beautiful car, very fast, has one of the fastest accelerations of a production car because it's electric. And one of my first cars, I think it's a 74 Pinto. When I started Drupal, I schlepped my files around with FTP. Anybody else? FTP client? Yeah. No, I was not SFTP. I was FTP, buddy. I was yank out the FileZilla, you know, and I was really advanced about it because I knew I needed different versions, so I had different folders. You know, so I would like name the folder like, you know, the date and the time. I had this really long convention, and you know, that worked pretty well till I figured out that we had stuffed our configuration in the database. So, but it did give me files. So if you're going to be nimble or agile with your process for Drupal, so there's a set of technical requirements you really must be thinking about. And Drupal is a particularly hard problem for Agile because in the world of software development, if you're on 500-hour projects or less, if you're on projects of 1,000 hours and less, these are pretty small projects in the whole scope of things. You think about, so I manage a team of developers, and I'm responsible for about 400 hours a week, employees all together. So that's 1 week of work if I have a 400-hour project. And so all of your sins of technical process really impact you. You know, are we using source control? Are we using Git? You know, hopefully you're on D.O. I think it's really hard to be very far into Drupal without understanding Git. It's really hard to be into it without understanding features so that we can deploy this site to multiple locations. At Promet, we're using Vagrant and Chef. I think Jody was using Puppet and Vagrant, which is a way to deploy virtual machines to all of your developers so that they have the same configuration. Brant and I used to work together. We've worked on several projects, and I do remember one where, you know, we're working on the server local. We go to production. Things don't work, and come to find out, like all of the pain that we had is because production has a different version of PHP and we weren't developing against it. So no fault of the development flow, you know, does take hours. There's that hard phone call to the customer. Yeah, we pushed to production. Yeah, it's broken. Yeah, we tested it. Yeah, we do have a test plan. We're really earnest about trying to get that done. So what I'm saying is if you're going to work Drupal, if you're going to be agile, you need to back up and take a strategic look at what is your technical agility. You know, do you have the ability to test it? You know, do you have hosting? You know, do you have a module strategy? You know, there's 24,000 modules, Susan? 22,000 modules plus sandboxes. Oh, that includes sandboxes. So part of our strategy is we pick modules we know. We really evaluate those modules. You know, we're going to use core, we're going to use things that are familiar, we're going to sell to those modules. Totally not against custom integration, totally not against custom modules, but really want to make sure every module needs to be in there. Don't stuff your site with modules you don't need, because this is my favorite point about Drupal. You know, we have the hook system, and the great thing about the hook system is I can write a hook, I can put it in a module, and I can hook in, and I can go change behavior all over the site. And the really horrible thing is you can write a hook and you can change behavior all over the site. So sometimes that debugging is a problem. Continuous integration, automated testing, these will save your life. We don't do as much of this as I like, but you need to have some kind of idea about it, or you will be launching sites, seeing things that you do not want to see. And you need a strategy for your company to be nimble. The thing that has changed in my 3 years of Drupal experience is the Drupal community is moving on. We're getting faster, we're becoming more agile, modules are more complex. It really shows up if you don't have source control, if you don't have some philosophy about these things, you can really get hung on not delivering the beautiful things about Drupal. All right, so still in that strategic agility, there's a whole operation side of this. And the first one I want to talk about, sales, is because as a developer, you know, those sales guys really annoy me. You know, I get, the way it used to be is I would get, as a project manager, I would get the project and like, hey, we have this wonderful gift for you. We've sold a project, and here's what the project's going to do, and here's your allotted time for it. How do you think that works out? It's like, not so good. Not so good. So on the sales side, you've got to align sales, and this is probably one of the hardest parts, is there's a real discussion in the Agile community about, can you be Agile with fixed cost projects? Fixed bid projects. I would argue you can be Agile with fixed cost. You cannot be Agile with fixed bid because you're fixing the requirements at the front. To be Agile, what we've got to say is I, as a development company, I, as a developer, I have limited resources and people I can assign to your project. You, as a customer, you have limited money and time. You know, it may be you have a month to develop something, you've got this promotion coming up, you want to get it out. But we're constrained on that, and what's going to make us work the best together is if we're both committed to, you have a fixed amount of money, I want to help you spend that, but I want to deliver you value. Like, you know, as a developer, as a project manager, I've worked on enough BS projects. I'm really not interested in delivering crap. I want to deliver projects that are successful, projects that inspire people, projects that inspire my team, projects that people are really excited to work on. And if we are both on the same side of both have limited resources and are committed to it, that's a much better conversation than, you know, paragraph 4 of the contract says we will not do this or we will do this feature. You have to have some structured communication. Scrum's going to help you with that. Project management system. If you're using Redmine, if you're using Jira, hear lots of good things about Jira. You do need a project plan. You shouldn't interpret that as a straitjacket. It's really more like, this is the amount of time we have, and how are we going to address that? We're going to talk about how do we address this communication thing, and what we've chosen at Promet is we've chosen what would be called Watergile or Fragile. We're small projects, remember again. Scrum in the pure Scrum is for teams of 5 to 7 people. So like a Drupal team of 7 people eats up, like 30 hours a week per person. So that's what, like 210 hours? Doesn't really fit. But what we did is we adopted 3 Scrum ceremonies. Scrum, comes from soccer or rugby. And I do like the kind of picture of everyone fighting, jumping into a pile there. But it's really a structured set of interactions and a structured set of processes that we go through. And you have Scrum artifacts, which are, you develop a product backlog. So at the very beginning of a project, we write down all the things we want to do. That's the list of all the things we would like to get in the project. And what we're going to do from that backlog is we're going to prioritize those because we're going to work in sprints. And sprints for Drupal tend to be pretty small. I think you guys are on 2-week sprints. I find 1-week sprints because it's a really small framework and we need to get that feedback. And each time we have structured interactions. So the Scrum coach interacts with them every day. I have a better slide later on. We're running a little bit short on timeline, so I'm going to run through this. So the interactions are structured as really on an Agile team. You have team members, you have a Scrum Master or coach, you have a product owner, stakeholders, and then you have everybody else. They may be subject matter experts, they may be program managers, they may be company owners, but for that Agile team working on the software, what is really important is the role of team member, Scrum coach, and the product owner. And the product owner is one person from the customer. Have any of you been on projects that are death by committee? You really should not. That's a discussion you need to have up front. Something needs to be said in the contract. That something needs to be said on the expectations is we expect one person to work with. We're not above presenting to the committee on some kind of regular basis, but all the changes and everything that come back need to be between that product owner and I like coach better than really I like project manager, because I've been on a number of projects where project manager is really kind of the evil guy that beats everybody into submission. And in an Agile framework, it's the Scrum Master's job. There's a philosophy about the Scrum Master's job is to empower his team to have the maximum velocity they are capable of. It's not his job to beat them up. It's his job to open up, to unblock roadblocks, and to help resolve problems for the team, to clarify requirements so they can keep working. So that each one of these team members, if you're a developer and you're having to go to the client and you go, oh, how does this work? And you get something, and then later on, someone else has a problem and they go to the client and they get a slightly different answer, and now we have fighting requirements. Provide some structure for that to interact with. So, talked a little bit about the backlog already. I'm going to talk about the daily Scrum meeting. So, these are exceptionally important. Stand-ups no more than 15 minutes. The Scrum Master facilitates these, and it's 3 questions. What did you do yesterday? What are you doing today? And what are your roadblocks? So just on a team basis, so if you're listening, this is a daily Scrum, and this is a meeting like everyone on the team. And it's important that everyone on the team is there. If it's a developer, a themer, project manager, or Scrum coach, sysops, those guys are in the meeting each time because often their problems overlap. And one of the problems, or one of the challenges is like sometimes you have problems that you think are in one domain that's in someone else's. And also, by standing together in the morning, there's a lot of times when someone says, I have this problem, and the solutions architect or the themer goes, oh, yeah, I've ran into that. I can help you with that. But the important part is don't run over 15 minutes, because if it's over 15 minutes, it's a discussion. And if it's a discussion, it's going to sideline everybody else actually getting to work. So also on the daily stand-up, one of the ways you know you're doing this wrong is if you're sitting down. It's really critical, because if you're sitting down, you tend to go on and talk for a while. So that's important. So you work in sprint. Each sprint, you pull up stories out of the backlog. You say, okay, this is a 8-week project. This is a 12-week project. This is 24 weeks. Doesn't matter. But you say, in the next 1 to 2 weeks, these are the things we're going to work on. The product owner attends those meetings. In Agile, there's a concept that every sprint we have potentially shippable code. And Drupal really lends itself to shippable code. We're trying to deliver, we should be able to enable a module, we should be able to deliver it, someone should be able to see what it does. The product owner's there, and you walk through that functionality, and what this gives you a structured interaction to say, yes, that group, grouping customers together this way, sending the web form in this way, that works for me, or, that's slightly different than what we think. It also gives you time to interact and say, hey, there's been a new release of this module. There's some additional functionality. Do we want to address that? Really important, but it's that structured interaction time. And just from managing teams, it's really good to kind of get in that cadence of things I can see right now instead of looking at the project for, this is going to go on for 24 weeks. And that's a good use of where the project plan works. So Drupal challenges. Some Drupal challenges with project size are dedicated resources. Most Drupal teams do not have a dedicated resources over the same part of the project over the entire lifetime. We address this by having dedicated resources for a sprint. But on a 400-hour project, how much of that is theming? How much of it is DevOps? How much is front end? How much of it's solutions architect? We have found that our velocity is much better when we allocate a dedicated team to a project and have them work all the way through. But it's a little bit different landscape than, say, Nancy's projects at Rackspace, where there's a team of Java developers. They're going to be on the project. It's an internal project, and it's going to go on for 6 months. Kind of a challenge for Drupal. Typically, systems solutions architect will stay with the project during the entire time, and people will float in and out from sprint to sprint. You have skill sets which are really separated. Your front-end developer is probably not going to be really interested in less and Compass. Your DevOps guy is not going to be interested in writing code. And you have infrastructure. And this kind of speaks to the whole vagrant idea is in Drupal. There's it's a stack of infrastructure. It's a stack of my Linux, my MySQL, the entire packages we're on. Yes, sir.
Don't you find that if people drift in and out, that you get kind of discombobulated and projects,
Depends on project size. On a large project. Okay, so the question was, if people drop in and out of a project, do you find that the project gets disconnected? You know, that they lose focus? And it depends on the size of the project. In my experience, is we will have a project kickoff among all the team members that we can foresee that are working on the project and allocate that. We will allocate a project team of who's going to be the themer, who's going to be the solutions architect, who the people are on the project, and try to plot that against all the projects that are going on. That can happen. Smaller projects, requirements are usually tighter. Larger projects require a different strategy, and that's kind of what I was saying with, in the spirit of being agile and adapting to change, you have to look and see how much theming does this project have. You may need to have a meeting and say, you know, we're going to work on all the functional requirements, build the site, theme and skin it at the end. Lately, the way we've been working that is we've adopted Omega as a theme. We lay everything out in blocks. The dev team lays out all the panels, lays out how the site is. The themer sets in with that at the beginning of the project, and then when we get to the theming, he's already up to speed on where it is. But I, as a Scrum coach and as a solutions architect, will sit in and walk them through how it needs to be themed. You have to be aware of it, you know, and it really depends on your projects, whether it's that 400-hour project or whether it's a 2,000-hour project. Okay, so, and we've got about 15 minutes. I'm going to spend about another 5 minutes and run through, and then we'll have some questions at the end. The co-location challenge. So Agile teams, if you read most of the frameworks, will say everyone needs to be in a room together, and there's a lot to be gained from all sitting in a room. You know, we're all sitting around. We have one whiteboard. If I run into a problem, I can go tap you on the shoulder. You can tap me on the shoulder. Hey, Johnny, what's going on? You know, I can pay better attention to how my team members are feeling. If someone's stressed, you have those nonverbal cues. Team building events are easier. You can have team meetings. You know, it is a challenge when you're located. And remember, we're also including the customer in this co-location. Scrum was really developed for an internal team. So we try to overcome it by using Skype, Google Hangouts, GoToMeeting. I have people's cell phones, so sometimes I text them, you know, instead of tapping them on the shoulder. They do the same for me. The good part is we can work with people that are all over the world. It is a challenge on really having that velocity if somebody is out of socket. It's not the same as working in the same room. Probably if I were working on a long-term project, sort of a SaaS model, I might want all of my team to be together, co-located. I've worked with a lot of teams that were distributed and really like it. It just doesn't work for some management styles. It does for others. You need to adapt to what you're doing. Yeah. All right, so there's a comment from Alan in the audience about working at All Players, and that by using Google Hangouts, using your tools, being aware that this is a challenge, that you can do that. And you can really leverage making your team happier and being able to extend your resources by working with people that are located, because if any of you haven't noticed, Drupal skills are in short supply. and being able to have access to people with domain knowledge and skill is really important.
Can I add something?
Sure.
I've also worked in both the co-located environments where we do streaming environment like now, and then previously in the whole co-located, where everyone had a big joint collaboration center. And that's fine for joint collaboration, but we found once we had to break off and do more noise factor in that type of environment, and a lot of the ones I could go to, was still a huge distraction. And sometimes you got to be in your own little cave to really get your work done once you figure out what it is that you need to do.
Yeah, I think Alan and I were discussing this on Friday. The comment was that sometimes when working co-located, the noise and traffic and going on is distraction. So you have that time when you need interaction, and you have that time when you need to work alone. And often working distributed is more beneficial. It's that time when your head's down, you don't need to be distracted. A lot of times I think this is why, as developers, we want to sit down and work after hours when the business guys are not annoying us. Multinational. So we're kind of out of time, and I sense we got some questions and things we want. So what I want to do is I'll go over this real quickly. Basically, if you're multinational, you still have to have some time that overlaps to talk, or your iterations kill you. I sent a ticket over to Asia Pacific. Someone had a question. They worked on the ticket 15 minutes. It got flipped back to me the next day. It takes too long. So with our Asia Pacific team, they overlap a couple hours a day, and that way we can kind of kick off, have that person-to-person meeting, and then the time when they need to go work, they can go work and not be distracted by the pointy-haired boss. So, yeah, Dilbert's my inspiration. So, yeah, it is very true. So my very most important top learning, simplicity is the best way you can be agile is really look at not doing work. Don't get features you don't need. Don't work on things that don't add value to the project. Communicate that to the customer. Do you really want to spend 40 hours sending this PDF out? Does that really add value to the customer? Have those conversations and be passionate about them. Make the most compelling software. If you've read Lean Principles, any of those, it's really important. Avoid complexity, offload complexity. If you're not a DevOps guy, maybe you need to look at Acquia, maybe you need to look at Pantheon. Don't get sucked into managing your own Git account unless that's your core skill and you can really do it well. It's a commodity. Other people do it well. It won't distract you. Automate complex tasks. Let me see. And I'll leave by leaving up the way you're not agile. So if you don't have a backlog, you have lots up front and requirements. If you don't ask your developers, like part of our sales process now, developer solution architects are involved. If we sell something, it's technically possible.
Oh.
Yeah. It's not something that, and I love the sales team. They're a very essential part of the business. But, bringing the architect in on the very front end lends a lot of credibility. Yes, we can do that. That's really easy. Sometimes they come up with much higher value solutions than just a salesperson. Oh, that we can do this way. Really adds a lot. Fixed bid is really, you can do fragile fixed bid. It's really dangerous. My good friend Tom McCracken was reminding me last night. He's like, well, we don't really do estimation because we don't do fixed bid. Daily stand-ups. I think you can read the rest of the list, so I'd like to leave a few minutes for questions here. So, yes.
All the work I'm doing is remote for various agencies and organizations, and it's critical that we use Hangout or something like that. And so two things. One, ever since Google Hangouts turned off that flatulent sound, our productivity did go up during the meeting. There's nothing like putting on a pirate we're in there sometimes, and they're like, we're doing all that kind of staring blankly, going through fresh books entries or something, see what it is we did before. Do you have any kind of just?
All right, so the comment, a couple comments was about from the floor was asking about using Google Hangouts and how much better it is since Google Hangouts eliminated the flatulence noise. I do like the pirate faces and is it dolphins? The reindeer one's really good at Christmas. I'm a big fan of that one. Question is for a distributed team, how do you get that stand-up meeting to where it only takes 15 minutes because it seems like this team's doing a lot of preparation like during the meeting. And that is where you need a Scrum coach or a Scrum master that just kind of helps everyone be prepared for the meeting. You know, it's about everyone respecting everyone's time. And so, as a Scrum master, a lot of times I will defer someone else till later to give them time to prepare. Or I know Nancy on her team that if you show up to the meeting late, you have to speak right then. So a little bit of social engineering helps, but it's really a belief of respecting each other, and we need to make the most use of our time. And then as a Scrum manager, I really want to hold that meeting to 15 minutes, and then if someone needs to take longer, I need to take that meeting offline and let the rest of the team get about their daily activities.
We sometimes hold the stand up and then after we'll reserve time for folks that just need to talk more on topics.
She comments that on her team, they reserve more time than the meeting. They have the meeting for folks that are there, but they reserve time for folks that have a little bit more depth. Someone else?
When we do our stand-ups, anybody can sort of say, hey, that's a discussion.
Yeah. Comment was anyone can say, say that's a discussion and table it. And Scrum's a journey. Agile's a journey, and it takes the whole team kind of saying that. I have been on meetings where, it's not just the Scrum coach. It's like, that needs more discussion. Table it and move on. Questions? Comments?
No Legos?
Oh, no Legos. I did feel bad. I didn't have any Lego slides. I saw those in like 3 presentations yesterday, and you had another question.
Scrum doesn't mean no to meetings, right? Or only these 15-minute meetings. Because surely you're going to have lots of meetings.
Right. Really, okay, so the Scrum is with a meeting with the teams. It's the Scrum manager's job and the product owner's job to take all those tasks where the developers, the team needs more requirements, where we need hosting infrastructure set up, where DevOps teams needs to do something, where we've got to figure out how this third-party interface works. So you may have a Scrum meeting and then immediately go into a meeting with the product owner and a solutions architect about how does this integration work. We're having trouble with the API. But the Scrum meeting is the whole team meeting, and the thought is that you move other meetings off to where it doesn't distract the whole team. And then the next morning, so in my daily Scrum, I may say, okay, Will, yesterday you asked about this integration point, and here's the pieces that are back, or I've created a ticket and put all the details in there for you to work. The Scrum Master has tasks out of that meeting as well. Anyone else? We got about 4 minutes here. Yes?
How do you keep the Scrum meeting from degenerating into a status meeting where everyone lies about the work they're doing?
All right, so I did not cover this about Scrum beliefs. So there's Scrum Principles. I'm sorry if this gets a little bit philosophical, but you really have to encourage this respect. And it's my job to call bullshit if someone's stuff isn't ready, and anyone on the team can do that. I've been on meetings. I worked with Brent, I worked with Alan both, and they'll say, hey, you didn't get this to me. What's up, dude? But you have to really have a way to have that open communication, or you're not going to have progress. In larger Scrum teams, they recommend that you break the reporting manager job off from the Scrum manager. because in a large project, you know, people are in fear of their job, but it's really important for someone to say, I'm struggling, I don't get it. You know, can you help me? And so, does that answer your question about how do you keep people honest?
Yeah, and more old-fashioned organizations will have a status meeting, everyone's sitting around the board, all this is going on, and the Scrum meeting looks like it could easily degenerate into that.
I have
a fear of that.
the question. Yeah, the question was, how do you keep that Scrum meeting from degenerating into a status meeting? We are at 11:30, so do we have another session after this? Is that right? All right, so sorry to run over. I'm available for questions if we want to move that back, but I'd like to let the other speakers come in. Thank you very much.